Okay, how can we get people out of MAGA or out of any cults? And unfortunately, the answer is nobody knows that. My grandfather, much beloved in my family, still runs the money for the children of God. And I say that by saying if there was a way to break people out of cults, I would know it and I would have done it for my family. The reason it's impossible to wake someone up out of a cult by force is because we buy into our own indoctrination. And I just made a whole video about brainwashing and all that in this same outfit if you want to go check it out. Now, I used to just stop there, right? We don't know how to get people out of cults. That being said, what we don't know how to do is engineer a crack in the brainwashing. But that doesn't mean you can't try. So there's a book I love to recommend. It's called Rising Out of Hatred. And it's about the heir to white nationalism, kind of a lot of what's the people who have taken the country now. There was this kid, Derek Black, who was raised as a white supremacist and was a big part of the movement. And the book is about the 4 years that it takes from his friends in college, a diverse group of friends, just hanging out with him and talking to him, even though his ideologies are terrible and literally hurt them, and getting him away from it. And I like to recommend that book because I like people to see it's a 4-year process. Now, once somebody has had the crack in the brainwashing, they're starting to question. For a lot of MAGA, that was over the Epstein list because that was the mission of the cult and they just destroyed it, right? So there have been a crack in the brainwashing. And if you suspect your loved one has had a crack in the brainwashing, then talking to them a lot is really helpful. Asking them a lot of questions. And you're basically trying to shove your hands in that crack and pull it open for them, right? And this is true regardless of whether they've had the crack in the brainwashing or not. Brainwashing depends on isolation, right? It's really, really important to understand that 50 years ago, they started to get all the Republicans watching Fox News and getting most of their opinions and information from Fox News, right? Which also in 1983 lost, you didn't have to have truth in journalism anymore. So Fox News was created to be entertainment in response to that, actually. So that is very important. They're isolated in their own thoughts. And there's actually this exercise that I tell people to do, because people will say, how do we know we're not in the cult, right? Because MAGA loves to say, you're in a cult. So, all right, so here's an exercise you can do. Imagine that you have your MAGA father-in-law in your total control for 2 weeks. Like his leg is broken. For some reason, he's lost a bet. He has to do exactly what you say. How many people, human beings in person with different perspectives of life, could you expose him to? And then flip that around. If yours is more than 2 or 3, you're probably not in the cult. And if theirs is more than 2 or 3, they're probably not in a cult. However, I know based on my MAGA father-in-law, he could expose me to exactly 1 perspective. Well, I could expose him to probably 20 or more, right? So that can be true, even though this can be useful, even though we know that they're the ones in the cult, because we know that brainwashing dies when you give it company, when you take them out of isolation and talk to them, take them around to other people that will talk to them. It's really hard to hate up close. And what MAGA relies on right now is that they're thriving in places where it's majority white people, right? They don't have to come into contact with things that break their stereotypes. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying really hard to get your people watching other things, reading other books. This will sound really self-serving, but the way we wrote Uncultured was so that you could sneak it in as, oh my gosh, this amazing story about this girl that grew up in a crazy sex cult and then went on to become a captain in the US Army. And the book will do the work. And what we know is one of the easiest ways to get people to recognize coercive control in their own lives is to recognize it in parallel contexts. So for example, I never have to tell ex-Mormons that they grew up in a cult before they read my book. They're going to figure that out as they are reading it. So that's the good news and the bad news. And you can always work on people, and it's just a matter of getting one crack in that ideology. And once that happens, it's only a matter of time, right? Cracks are really good at letting light in, even if they're tiny. But people who are actively brainwashed are really, really good at shutting out everything and not looking at anything too hard, because cognitive dissonance is actually incredibly fragile and they don't want to have that crack because that crack is painful. So they're actively trying to avoid it, and you are actively trying to create a scenario for it to happen. So, kind of like networking or like other things, right? It's like there's luck involved. There's a piece that you can't plan, but you can be working on it all the time and be ready for when it does happen.